All right, Liam. Hey, buddy. I wanted to do a little bit of a video comparison of your swing versus another player that I've been working with on a regular basis. This video is one that I'm sure you remember making. Obviously, it's one that your dad had sent to me, just kind of asking some questions. Him and I spoke on the phone a little bit, just kind of about your process and some of the stuff that you do on a regular basis. And he's telling me like some of the people that you work with on a regular basis for hitting and telling me some of the stuff that you do regularly throughout the week for hitting as well. And he sent me this video, and I've been kind of watching it a little bit, and I wanted to do a side-by-side comparison of you and this guy right here. His name is Alexander Wright. He went to Cathedral High School, played for Dylan and I for a number of years, and is now at George Washington University. I may have told you a little bit about him in the past, but I wanted to talk to you about your swing in comparison to his, honestly because you guys have a lot of similarities. You seem very similar in your athletic types, especially when I think back to Alexander when he was 14 and 15 years old, about his athletic build and the things that he was trying to do as a hitter. It seems very similar to the things that you're trying to do as a hitter as well. He's a lefty swinging outfielder just like you. And as I said, your body types and your mechanical makeups are very similar. But I think that this would be a really good, experience for you to kind of see your swing side by side to Alexander's, so I can show you a little bit kind of what we're going to be trying to work towards here in the long run. You'll see as I do this breakdown here going forward that you've got some things to work on for sure, but you are in a really good spot that is already going to be setting you up for decent success going forward. I know you've got a couple different voices in your ear right now, but based on my conversation with your dad, I believe it was his sister that you've worked with a little bit, and it sounds like to me some of the stuff that she's telling you is very good. I agree with a lot of it. She's using a lot of the same language that we're going to be using on a regular basis when we're doing our hitting lessons. So I'm really excited about that you've got somebody else that you know is kind of preaching the same stuff. So hopefully a lot of this stuff won't be brand new. But again, I wanted to do a side-by-side comparison just to be able to show you a little bit of what our goal is here and what we're really trying to work towards. Alexander and I have been working together pretty closely for the last 5 months on his hitting when he was in town over the summer. We worked together about 3 days a week, and he's made a lot of strides. And some of the issues that you're having right now, Alexander was having even as a Division I athlete, right before him and I started working. He's made a lot of changes, and I'm going to go over kind of what those changes need to look like for you as well. And like I said, give you a good comparison to Alexander here. This swing of Alexander's, it's kind of set up, relatively in the same location as the same pitches that you're working with. So it's going to work out really well to kind of compare what we kind of need to do here. So let's just talk about stance comparison right away. I know when we first came in for your workout and we talked a little bit, one of the things that I mentioned was the difference in the types of athletes that we're going to train. Those two different types, again, were aerials and terrestrials. Aerials are going to be athletes that are going to be more upright, that like to be sort of fast twitch. They can do a lot of different things as far as athleticism is concerned, but your terrestrials are going to be more grounded. They want to load up. They want to be more powerful. They're not as fast twitch, and they really need to load up to try to have massive explosions of energy to generate that power. I would say both of you guys, based on your stances here and what looks like is most comfortable for you, you guys are going to both be those aerial types. You like to be upright, and you like to be fast twitch. I know you play basketball as well. Alexander was a tremendous athlete as well and played multiple sports, just like you. So you guys are very similar in your athletic makeup and what you guys are capable from an athletic biological standpoint. So you both have this sort of relaxed up, tall stance. I absolutely love that. You guys both look relatively similar here. From here, I want to talk about, sort of our kinematic sequence and that story of the swing of what we're trying to build. As I've said before, we want to try to make our swing as consistent as possible. We need to be able to repeat it over and over and over again. I think that's one of the main key signs to an efficient swing. Alexander, one of the biggest issues that he had coming into the time that we worked together over the last 5 months is that his swing was extremely inconsistent. Like he would change his swing nearly every single pitch just to try to make sure that he was forcing contact, versus trying to build an efficient swing that's consistent on a regular basis and long through the zone and leaning on that to try to make sure that he's got a high contact rate. I would say 100% contact rate and making contact with 100% of pitches that you swing swing at. That sounds like it would be a benefit, but I wouldn't say that it is, because that would normally tell me that somebody's changing their swing just to try to make contact with every single pitch that comes, and now they've got a swing that's more defensive versus being offensive. So that's one of the things that Alexander has really improved over the last 5 months, and I think you already do a good job of having your swing be more consistent. I just want to try to build your swing to be a more efficient swing through the zone, and we're going to talk about a little bit here what that looks like. So again, your swing's like a story. We want to be able to repeat it and tell it over and over and over again. We need to keep that story and the swing and the steps within the swing and the chapters within the story kind of in the same order. A story is not going to make sense if we take chapters out of it, or if we take chapters and move them around. We want to make sure that we are telling that the exact same way every single time, and it's the same thing with the swing. So let's talk about the kinematic sequence a little bit. So you both have pretty relaxed stances. You have very similar loads. Xander's got a little bit of a leg kick, and he likes to load up into that back hip just like that. You have something very similar as well. You like to load up into that back hip as well, kind of coming over to the top and doing a little bit of your leg kick. I've got the video paused right here for both of you when I would say you're both kind of at your peak of the leg kick. One thing you can see with Alexander here he's doing a pretty decent job of really kind of coiling in that back hip and kind of rotating into that, and I would say sort of doing kind of a deadlift move to get all of his energy and tension into that back hip. That's something we're going to work on with you, long term. It's not something that I'm going to try to make sure that we're implementing right away. It's something that's going to help us be able to get a ton of bat speed and hit the ball, a lot further. But it's not going to be the thing that's going to help you find barrels more consistently right now. So we will work towards this, but it is something that we're going to not put at the very top of our list to fix right now. But you can see kind of from him, he's doing sort of that Bo Bichette type move where he's got that leg kick and he's showing his back hip pocket towards the pitcher and kind of coiling into that. We're not doing that right now in your swing, but that's okay. But again, we will move towards that long term. Next thing I want to show is sort of his forward action towards the pitcher. Again, your load is not here for power. Your load is here as your timing mechanism. So as long as your leg kick is consistent in its height on a regular basis and it's consistent in its cadence and its tempo, I'm very happy with your load mechanism. I'm very happy with your timing mechanism. Just remember that is there for timing and not for power generation. The power generation comes from other things that we'll talk about here in the future. So I'm going to talk about next, again, that forward action towards the pitcher. This motion, the stride, is what we're working towards to try to get towards our slot position. You can see that Alexander still has some sort of negative movement with his bat. His bat is getting a little bit more wrapped, a little bit more tilted towards the pitcher. That is what we're going to call that separation action. And when we get to slot's going to be defined, our slot position is going to be defined by when that front heel hits. So you can see in this position right here, I've stopped the video for Alexander when his front heel has hit the ground. I'm going to do the exact same thing for you as I kind of move forward to this as well, so you can see that. And you are doing the exact same kind of bat tilt that Alexander is getting. You're wrapping that and kind of loading that elbow back. You can see it's moving kind of negatively as we're moving forward. That's helping you get that separation that we talked about a little bit in your first workout. But let's evaluate kind of what our slot position looks like. And this is something that we're going to work on here. And we're going to try to, this is one of the first things that we're going to change and we're going to try to fix. So let's go comparison by comparison here. Look at Alexander here as far as, let's start from the bottom to the top. He's got a good, balanced, athletic slot position. His weight is distributed evenly throughout his body. His feet are wide to a spot that is comfortable for him. He's putting his legs in a position that I would say is the most athletic position that Alexander can possibly be in. Right now, the biggest difference between your feet and his feet, I think you probably see it immediately. And I don't know if this pitch is set up in an outside spot for you, but even if it is, I don't want us to get into a situation where we are having to stride and be very closed once our front foot comes down in order to be able to reach that outside pitch. If we can't reach the outside pitch, I want to improve our bat path versus having to step towards it, because I want this stride to land in the exact same spot every single time. Your swing does not seem right now like it's a swing that is designed or needs to be a swing that is designed around having a closed stance when you get into the slot position. But as you can see, your right foot, your front foot, is much closer to this white line than your left foot is, which is going to ultimately, end up making it to where you have a very closed stance. When I talked to your dad on the phone last week, he told me a little bit about, you had mentioned in our scrimmage, or I think it was in banana ball, that you just didn't really feel like you were picking up the ball. And honestly, I feel like having closed stances like this can really affect that, because whether you realize it or not, when you have a closed stance towards the pitcher, you actually, unless you have very good mobility in your neck and have the ability to really turn it, you actually will impede your vision by actually almost even blocking your left eye from the pitcher. So all of a sudden you're trying to pick up and track a pitch that's moving and has coming in with a lot of velocity from a pitcher with just your right eye versus using both of your eyes. And I think a lot of people don't realize that when they step close or they start with really closed stances, that can ultimately be impeding their best version of their vision, which is using two eyes. So one of the things we're going to work on today, especially when you come in for lessons, is we're going to work on putting this athletic slot position into a more squared stance and making sure that we are striding in a way that allows us to get the best access towards the baseball by having that even stance. If you were going to try to squat the most weight you'd squat in your life right now, or you're going to try to field a ground ball, or you're going to play defense in basketball, you probably would not do it to where your right foot is dramatically in front of your left foot. Now, is that dramatically in front of your left foot in general? No, but when it comes to performing an extreme athletic move like a swing, I would say that this is a pretty close stance. So we're going to even this out, okay? We're going to get you more comfortable in your legs to where you are feeling, full activation of all the muscles in your legs. So we're going to try to put you into a more like a deadlift feeling type stance. You don't have to be super low at that, but the biggest thing is right now, I feel like in your swing, you would probably, if I asked you this, you would probably say at squat position, you feel a little more quad heavy, and I need you to feel kind of rear heavy versus not leaning back, but I need you to feel the activation of not just your quads in your legs, but your hamstrings, your glutes, your adductors, your abductors. We got to get all those things activated, because if we can do that, we're going to be able to generate the most power that we possibly can. The biggest thing I want you to know is that power is generated from the ground up, not from, heavy rotational power is good, but you're only going to be able to rotate hard if we have good ground activation. And to have good ground activation, I believe we need to be able to have that good 50-50 weight distribution. We need to be able to have an even stance versus an overly, closed or open stance. There are times to do those things, but again, I think that those are due to physical, limitations that some hitters have. We can talk about those deep in depth if you want to down the road. But from what I see from you already, I don't believe that you have any of those limitations to where we're going to really have to close that stance off. So you can see, as for Alexander, for example, his is very even. It's very symmetric. He looks like he's a good built, strong triangle right now. And this is something we had to work on for Alexander to get. He did not have this, 5 months ago. He was able to still be, pretty competitive at a Division I level with a stance that I would say at slot position is, was not beneficial for him, but we had to work towards this. So, as you can see, that's, from the bottom up, kind of what we're looking for. So, Alexander's a little bit more bent over the plate at this point. We're going to that's called hip hinge. You can see if I were to draw a line right here where Alexander's hips are, you can tell based in comparison to you, you are a little bit more upright versus him. I don't mind you being upright in your stance, but once we get into the slot position, we need to be in that more, that's what I talked about with that deadlift position where our butt's kind of out and we're activating, our lower half a little bit more. So that's called hip hinge. We're going to work towards getting to that. Next thing I want to talk about is the angle of your bat. When I showed you the video or the picture of our slot positions for professional athletes, I wanted to talk about, where is that bat at as far as our degrees is concerned. Alexander's is, his is a little bit more wrapped than most people, but Alexander is a extremely physical guy. He's so strong and puts a lot of time in the weight room and working on being strong and being fast twitch with his strength. But you can see that his knob is more pointed towards the catcher's feet, where your knob's going to be more pointed towards, I would say, probably even the umpire's mask. What you don't realize is you are creating a much longer bat path for you to be able to get to the baseball, where Alexander's is much shorter And having that longer bat path isn't necessarily going to help you generate bat speed. It's just going to make it, a more difficult process for you to be able to find barrels on a regular basis, right? So you may be able to get a higher max exit velocity by having your bat wrapped a little bit more. But I'm more concerned about your average exit velocity versus your max. If we are over 100 pitches finding, a barrel 85% of the time versus over 100 pitches finding a barrel 45% of the time, we're going to have a higher average exit velocity than we are going to have a higher max exit velocity. And ultimately, it's going to help you be more successful down the road. So I want to get this slot position to where this bat's a little bit more under control. I think this is probably a result a little bit of, like I said, I know you'd worked with that one guy that was having you, get your arms up a little bit higher so you can get those power L's. I'm a big believer in the power L's, but you can see Alexander's got them, and he's got very effective ones, but he doesn't have his hands, I would say, higher than unnecessary, right? His hands are probably about even with his ear. Your hands are maybe slightly above that, and it's caused at this point for you to maybe have a little bit too extreme a bat wrap of what I want. Again, we want to get that to where you are at a bit of a more 45-degree angle, because this slot position and where our hands are and where our bat is, we're going to call that the beginning of our bat path. We need to make it to where our first step along that path is going to be the most accurate step possible. You're going to have a harder time getting to be able to have an efficient bat path if we are wrapped this much and if our barrel is laying down as much as yours is. So we're going to work towards standing that up a little bit more. Great example of that is go look at Ronald Acuna. His is like flat out just straight up. I honestly don't know how he does it without a little bit of tilt, but there's more and more major leaguers now that are going to have that bat kind of more pointed straight up so they can make the bat lighter and have more control than they are going to wrap it around. So that's another thing that we're going to try to work on changing here. So from here, you have a lot of really good things going on in your swing as far as your kinematic sequence. You are doing a good job of firing your lower half first. That back leg, as you can kind of see, is starting to collapse and drive down and in. That's great. We don't want to spin on this back foot. We want to drive into the front foot, and you are already doing that. You're doing a great job of that. But again, you're kind of along with our bat path. Not in a positive way, but more so because it's wrapped. We want to really be able to have tighter turns right here than what you kind of do. Biggest thing I want you to try to do as you watch the rest of this video is I'm going to draw a straight line down your spine at slot. Okay, and I'm going to draw a straight line down Alexander's line at slot. Let me redo that here. And you can see both of you can see his has a little bit more of that tilt and the athleticism there. Yours is a little bit more straight up. Alexander on he's going to do a really good job of rotating around his spine and holding this angle, right? His head he is rotating around where his spine would be. His spine's really honestly not moving at this point as he drives forward. You, kind of as you can see, your spine sort of leans back too much. We've got a little extra bend on it, and you can see just kind of how extreme you are leaning back and not rotating around your spine and the head movement that you have, versus if I put a circle now around Alexander's head in his swing, that's where you can really tell. I'm going to put a circle around your head as well in your swing. Okay, let's get back to your slot position, sorry. Okay, you kind of exit this a little bit towards the back, and Xander's going to really kind of stay within it the entire time and doesn't really exit that, right? Now, that's going to be something that we're going to teach you about holding posture throughout your swing, and I'm going to show you right now the reason that you kind of have that negative movement versus the reason that Alexander doesn't. Now, and I said before, you guys you're doing some stuff right now that Alexander was doing months ago. And that thing that Alexander was doing months ago that he's now fixed is this. When you come and you approach this ball, I want you to look at the gap between your arms. Okay? I want you to see that gap between your arms is more kind of a straight up gap. If we look at Xander's, when he gets to contact, you can see through that gap between his arms in a more side-to-side fashion. If I was going to throw a ball between your arms, that ball would go from up to down, and I'd be able to drop it on the ground, whereas his would go kind of side to side. And this is a result of him really mastering the idea of getting the barrel below the hands and not swinging across his body like this, right, and coming out and around, but he is swinging more. That's a bad example, so ignore that. The line there, that's not going to help you see it. But he is swinging more direct towards the pitcher, and where you can see the difference in the finish here. As I continue to finish Alexander's swing, you're going to see. I'll go do yours first. After you hit the ball, we should continue to see that gap in the arms as long as possible. But right after you hit the ball, you can see immediately your bottom hand starts turning over the top, right? And we're not even all the way through extension yet, and we're already starting to see that handshake motion right there. And if we see Alexander's, he's going to continue, and that you can see his hand does not get above, his left hand does not get above his right hand until there, and your left hand is above the right hand there. Okay, that is a rollover out and around swing. Bat path versus Alexander's he's gotten and mastered it to where he is getting to the ball, he is finishing through the ball, and he's finishing sort of at an incline uphill, and you're finishing a little bit lower out to the side. So that is the energy of your swing is, I would say, it's left to right, where Xander's is more direct towards the pitcher. If he was going to let go of this bat right now, it would tumble over and goes to the back of the cage. If you were to let go of your bat right now, it would not tumble over. It would spin side to side and it would go to the side of the cage. So now it's one thing for me to show you this. It's like, how do we fix that? We're going to talk about that a lot in lessons. But the main thing I want you to know that this is bat path is very easy to fix. Slot position is very easy to fix. What's hard to fix for guys is learning and understand proper kinematic sequence of the swing. You've got that. You know what's supposed to happen here. You know how to drive into your front leg. You know that you're not supposed to spin off your back leg and squish the bug. You're driving into the front. You're doing a great job of power generation, right? And that's why you're able to be effective and be a solid hitter. We just need to clean up this bat path. And one of the easiest ways to clean up that bat path and get something like Xander is, you can see his back foot's coming off. He's driving into the front leg, but his bat path is cleaned up a lot. He's rotating around his spine. In order to be able to rotate around our spine, clean up bat path, and do all of that, we want to start by getting this slot position for you a little bit cleaned up, get you into a better starting position, get you a little bit more athletic here, get your bat a little bit more under control, get you more square. And then there, we're going to be able to really honestly work on effective bat path to where you can see Xander, it's tight turns. He doesn't cast. He is very direct towards the ball, getting that bat whipped through to make contact there versus contact there, and finishing out and around versus through and at an incline and uphill. So again, a lot to digest there. I know it's a long video. I'm already 23 minutes in. Biggest thing I want you to know, man, is you're in a great spot. There are new guys on the team that I've got way more to fix on them than what we do on you. These are things that I think you'll pick up really quickly. You digest things very well. And the drills that we're going to work on and that I'm going to give you to do at home, they're going to help these things set in pretty quick. It's going to feel a little awkward at first because, it's going to be for the third time now, probably in like 90 days, that someone's going to be changing where your hands are starting and what your stance looks like. But I think ultimately you're going to like this more, because I think it's going to become comfortable for you much quicker than what the other ones have. And ultimately, you're just going to end up finding more barrels. Biggest thing is, as we do these lessons and as we're working on this, be okay with a little bit of frustration. Be okay with coming in for these lessons and leaving, not feeling great about where you're at. If these lessons are super easy, the game's going to be way harder than what we want it to be. I want these lessons to be challenging, and I want them to be, intellectually, confusing at first, so we can challenge your mind as well. But you're going to pick up on a lot of these things, and we're going to start using the same language. And everybody on the team is going to be using the same language as well as we are working on these things. You're going to be able to help other guys diagnose what's wrong with their swing, and they'll be able to do the exact same thing for you as well. So super long video. Watch it once, twice, however many times you want. Let's talk about it. You know, I'll do plenty of these for you as we kind of progress, and we'll do more of these so you can see the changes. But understand you're in a great spot. Just a couple things we need to change, and I'm really excited about where this is going to go for you, man. So feel free to watch this. Give me a call. We'll talk through it. Let me know if you have any questions.